Neither the Federal Reserve nor the Treasury, not Congress or even the White House, the American economy began a catastrophic descent as the early stages of the real estate crisis started taking shape. 2 years later, in 2008, the true scope of the devastation became crystal clear as the stock market collapsed, the credit markets dried up, banks melted down, and unemployment began to soar. America was thrust into a recession and a period of national misery not seen since the Great Depression.
Are we the people responsible for the chaos that is enveloping America? That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The folks are indeed responsible for the government they get. Germans could have thrown Hitler out. They did not. Russians fought hard for Stalin. The Chinese surrendered to Mao. The Cubans allowed Fidel Castro to take away their liberty. The folks are responsible. And now Americans are faced with a citizen challenge, not at the levels of totalitarianism, but a very serious economic situation. Yesterday, the Government Accountability Office, the nonpartisan investigative arm of Congress, released its annual audit of the U.S. government. The report covers the fiscal years 2011 and 12. The conclusion of the report is this, quote, absent policy changes, the federal government continues to face an unsustainable fiscal path. Let me repeat that. Absent policy changes, the federal government continues to face an unsustainable fiscal path. If the feds do not stop the wild spending and do not reform Medicare and Social Security, the U.S. dollar will collapse. That means that all of our savings, all of our investments, our homes, and everything else will blow up before our eyes. Now, chances are you will not hear about the GAO's report today, except on this program. The liberal media will not tell you what is going on. The reason? President Obama does not want to cut federal spending or reform entitlements. That is crystal clear. And the media loves President Obama. So the folks be damned. This is like telling people standing on a beach, hey, a tsunami's coming, and if you don't move, you're going to be killed. But the beach folks say, I like it here. I'm not moving. And then eventually the wave sweeps them away. That's exactly what's happening now. We're living in a country that's polarized. We're also living in a country that is becoming addicted to machines, the internet. We discussed that last night. Many American citizens, perhaps most, are now too lazy to pay attention to their country. They're selfish, caught up in individual pursuits. Thus, the federal government has been allowed by we the people to get out of control. Last year, the Fed spent $1.1 trillion more than the government took in. That is grossly irresponsible. The debt now approaching $17 trillion. President Obama, the biggest spending chief executive in history. So, I have to play Paul Revere here. I have to continue to tell you the truth. But I also believe many Americans simply will not listen. And even worse, they are not smart enough to even care.
Every citizen in this country felt the stress, the fear, and the uncertainty that came with not knowing how long the malaise would last and how deep the damage would be. Well, we all know this story by now. But why were the people in Washington, whose sole responsibility was to prevent this kind of a meltdown, incapable of protecting us from this crisis? Why did the leaders of America allow our country to sink into this financial abyss? Where were their voices of reason? And what does the future hold for our great nation? And how can you and your fellow Americans on Main Street stay safe from what lies ahead?
We're joined by Max Kaiser, stockbroker turned activist, who predicts America's on a slippery slope to economic collapse. Thanks for joining us. What do you think of America's national debt levels?
Levels are outrageous, and the way that the America can get away with it is by maintaining the world reserve currency. Is a big part of the American hegemony or the American empire. You know, when America writes checks or creates bonds to other countries, when those bonds are due, America just creates more bonds. So it's what some call an extraordinary privilege. And this is why countries like Russia, China are looking to divorce themselves from the U.S. U.S. dollar. They're doing more deals amongst themselves, more bilateral deals in their local currencies and the regional currencies. And this is ultimately, America is a debt-aholic.
What are the consequences of America's national debt?
Well, I think it's in the works right now. Some kind of gold bullion-backed currency. And again, with the U.S., it's great if you have the world reserve currency, and everyone needs to buy U.S. dollars to conduct their business. And this is why countries like Russia and China and Iran and Brazil are trying to divorce themselves away from the U.S. because it's a completely toxic currency that's just ripe with accounting fraud. They know that the fiat currency, U.S. dollar-based global post-World War II, IMF, World Bank, phantasmagorical world of never having to pay your debts that the world has had to suffer through since World War II is coming to a close. And once it happens, you want to be on the right side of that trade.
Are you prepared to stick your neck out and say by this date will be doomsday for America, as you call it?
But I don't think at this point I don't think you can reverse it. There's nothing that can be done to reverse this inevitable collision.
In fact, the value of the dollar has declined so much, they're going to be taking pennies out of circulation because a penny is no longer worth its weight in copper. What's that mean? It means that the $14 trillion debt that Van Bernanke has run up in terms of the money supply can only be paid back one way, and that is to devalue the dollar. The collapse of the United States dollar, then it will be paid back in cheaper dollar terms. These cheaper dollar terms will allow the Federal Reserve and the United States Treasury to balance the books. And there you have it, folks. Thusly you see the devaluation of the currency. In Asia, for example, this is what we can expect in America. Asian stocks rose and gold hit a near 3-year high on Monday, extending a move that started late last week with a steep drop in U.S. new home sales, tempered by expectations the Federal Reserve will soon reduce stimulus. India, Indonesia, and Brazil have scrambled to stem the destabilizing outflows of capital that have slammed their currencies sharply lower, with the rupee skidding to record lows recently. That's because investors pulled out of crowded trades in preparation for a post-stimulus world. In a post-stimulus world, we'll begin to see how badly the poison, formerly the medicine, has affected the body of the world politic and economic. The upcoming superstorm, you can see it forming on the horizon. Do you have your place to go? Are your assets protected? These are questions you must begin to ask yourself. Another commodity that is highly undervalued at this point, and you can expect to see a revaluation in it, is water. Most corporations are going out worldwide to purchase all the water rights so they can have potable water for their production needs. Water is one of the most scarce resources on the planet Earth and has been highly devalued for the past 100 years. When once the valuation is reflected in the marketplace, you'll see skyrocketing water prices, the likes that you had never imagined. 70% of water is now being used in agricultural purposes, virtually squandered onto the landscape of the world today. However, since we cannot replace water, it is a non-renewable resource. Many people think water is a renewable resource, however, it is not. Water is the most complex compound known to man. So with spiking oil prices, you're going to see people moving to more fuel-efficient cars, even electric hybrids. What's going to happen when water prices spike? The truth is, we're living on a planet that has finite resources. We've always opted to extract the easiest resources first while using more and more each year. Eventually, the use of these finite resources has to peak and then decline as their extraction gets harder and more expensive. Cheap oil. Plus, it's not only oil that's peaked. Natural gas, high-grade uranium, many rare earth minerals, phosphorus, water, and other important resources have peaked as well. We're trying to go beyond the planet's resource limits. You're going to see massive conservation on a scale that's not yet been seen. And this device, the Natural Irrigation Monitoring Tool, it's a scientific breakthrough that can save literally billions of gallons of water every day. It improves water efficiency usage by up to 60%. That's an incredible savings, and the amount of water that one uses just to water their lawn is a huge amount every year that's wasted. So improving efficiency in terms of water lawn usage is highly paramount in the upcoming new superstorm. The global economy, these rippling effects are going to be shattering worldwide institutional structures, and water conservation is going to be of paramount importance, even and above that of urban areas. Already we're seeing water shortages on a massive scale in New Zealand with up to only 14 days in their pipeline. So they only have 14 days of water supplies till they run out. You can go 3 days without water. The Natural Irrigation Monitor, or NIM. It's a new inexpensive way to conserve water and save money in lawn irrigation. It's like a ET, or evapotranspiration controller, of the kind you'll find on expensive water facilities throughout the world, yet at 1/10 the cost. It measures 4.5 inches by 3.5 inches. It's a very safe and simple device. One satisfied customer said, "I have scientifically tested NIM and personally use it to guide irrigation on my own property. While deceptively simple, NIM provides an accurate and reliable guide to irrigation timing and amount that can lead to substantial water savings and irrigation conservation." For more information and to order your very own NIM, please contact Dave Kurt, DAVEKURT 45 @yahoo.com. To run a rain catcher, it's relatively simple. There's a pyramid on the side. It says 1/4, 1/2 inch, or 3/4 inch. A quarter means you turn your irrigation system off. Once it's in the off mode, of course, it will not irrigate your lawns when it's not required. However, when it is too dry at the 3/4 inch mark, you simply turn your irrigation system on. Then when it's at the optimal level at 1/2 inch, you run your irrigation system at that point normally. The more times that you can put your irrigation system for your lawn sprinklers in the off mode, that's a tremendous savings because the roots have enough moisture. Resource depletion is occurring at a massive rate. The market values tend to undervalue an environmental amenity. Things that we take for granted, clean water, air, and even food. 10 foods that shall be going extinct are among them salmon, bluefin tuna. You'll no longer be able to dine on these delicacies. In addition to that, There's also the devaluation of the currency. What is the currency's value? If you take the liabilities of $14 trillion, annual payments of $1.4 trillion, it's simply unsustainable.